Hey everyone, welcome to the Care Counsel podcast, a premier feature of the American Association of Christian Counselors. Our hope and our heart in all of this is to have clinical conversation engaging around the topics of mental health and matters of faith. Co-hosted by myself, Zach Clinton, Vice President of the AACC, alongside of my dad, Dr. Tim Clinton, President of the AACC.
This podcast has really been historically connected to the council council tapes that we had back in years gone by.
Yeah.
What we were trying to do and what we're going to focus on is meaningful conversation with leading experts in the field, whether mental health or ministry leaders, around topics especially related to today's generations. We want to bring that kind of information to you to help, quote, increase your counseling and ministry effectiveness. That's what this is all about. They've always been a special feature part of our membership benefit program, what people have loved. And so with that,
you guys, we hope and pray that you enjoy this week's edition. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back into the Care Counsel podcast, a premier feature of ours here at the American Association of Christian Counselors. I'll be your host today, Dr. Zach Clinton, and as always, man, it's such a joy and an honor of ours to have you join us today. Because let's be real, life can get complicated, and sometimes the pain runs deeper than words could ever express. And one thing some may know through experience, but many of us know through our line of work, is that few wounds cut as profoundly as sexual betrayal. It shatters trust, it fractures identity, and it leaves a lasting mark not only on our relationships, but on the soul. But the question many continue to ask is this: is healing really possible after that kind of trauma? And what does healing even look like, especially maybe when the relationship doesn't survive? Well, today on the Care Counsel podcast, we're joined by someone who's not only studied this pain, but she's lived it. Dr. Sheri Denham Keffer is a doctor of marriage and family therapy, author of Intimate Deception, Healing the Wounds of Sexual Betrayal, and founder of the Brave One Community, a safe faith-based space for women recovering from betrayal trauma. With over 2 decades of clinical experience and a heart for restoring hope, Dr. Denham Keffer brings together psychology, brain science, and spiritual truth to show us that while it wounds us deeply, it doesn't have to define us forever. This conversation is about more than relationships. It's about reclaiming your worth, rebuilding your belief in safety, and finding restoration even when your story doesn't go the way you thought it would. Dr. Sheri, my friend, welcome to the show. We're so grateful to have you with us today on the Care Counsel podcast.
Hey, Zach, it's an honor to be with you and with everyone that's joining us today. This is an important conversation. And I told you, you've got some questions that you asked that I'm going to color outside the lines today with you, just because of your heart, how relevant you want this to be, and up to speed with what's really going on in the world of sexual betrayal.
Dr. Sheri, you really do bring such a wealth of knowledge and experience to this conversation. More than 25 years, come on, that's crazy, of work in the marriage and family therapy space, trauma recovery, spiritual healing. For those of you who might be maybe new or aren't as familiar with your line of work, I'd love for you just to give us a better understanding and acquaint our listeners and our audience members and students and leaders here at the AACC just with what the professional experience and journey has been like for you personally, but also what really was it that called you into this heavy but very meaningful line of work?
Yeah, this is one of those situations when you kind of work backwards. This is not a line of work I ever wanted to be in, to be honest. It came out of my own heartbreak. But, usually when you're a sexually betrayed partner, you don't want to share it publicly. You actually pull in because of your own shame, carried shame that goes along with that. But my story started with being a pastor's wife, and my former husband, Connor, sexually betrayed me in our relationships. We were serving in the church, and you would have thought, when you saw us, that there was nothing going on in our marriage. And a lot of couples are like that. No one really knows the heartache, the pain, the leprosy that's going on within your relationship because of the sexual acting out. But Connor acted out through pornography, multiple affairs, prostitutes, and all that was going on right under my nose. And I was heartbroken. I just, trying to serve in ministry. My degree was, my former degree was in Bible and theology. And so I wanted to be in ministry full time. I just didn't realize that I was stepping into somebody who had already been struggling with a sex addiction. And I think honestly, in Connor's mind, I honestly think that he thought that he was going to marry me and that somehow our relationship, our sexuality, our connection together would get him on a better track.
Mm.
And the hooks of the lust, the hooks of the sexual acting out, it just had him gripped. In fact, back in the day when I wanted to share this because I think about hooks, when ancient Hebrew was written, much like hieroglyphics, the word for lust is ava, which means the strong nail that hooks you to itself. Now, in contrast to a derivative of that, which is kave, which is actually the word for hope, which means what comes after the nail. So you open this show today by saying, can you have hope? And I'm here to say, yes, you can. But it doesn't come without a price tag. It doesn't come without hard work. It doesn't come without cost. It doesn't come without impact. But it is possible to have redemption in your life personally, in your relationship, whether you stay or not. I see redemption on both sides. So hang on, because there are things that can be done to help you get unhooked and to help the coupleship get unhooked from the sexual deception that's, killing the relationship like a python.
Dr. Sheri, before we pressed record, I just told you how much we admired and appreciated the work that God has called you to. I can only imagine how heavy that work is, especially having walked it through those things yourself. But as you continually step up to the front lines and you walk alongside of countless people that have experienced sexual betrayal and betrayal trauma and heartache and heartbreak, God has called you to this line of work for such a time as this. And, this is a topic that almost seems taboo in the church sometimes, where it's difficult to bring up, difficult to discuss. But I love that you are leading on the forefront of this very topic because you're doing it with authenticity, you're doing it with vulnerability, but you're also doing it with strength. And so again, from all of us here at the AACC, we love you, we admire you, we appreciate you, we stand with you. And I can't wait to keep on unpacking this because it is a hard conversation to have, especially in our line of work as counselors and coaches and pastors and more. One thing I wanted to note up front is there's so many different things, as you mentioned, different vices and lusts that are just pulling at our attention in the culture and society that we live in. I think of the technology advancements. I think of social media. I think of, you mentioned pornography, and we're in a porndemic, as Jim Kress would like to say. And so just recognizing all of the things that are pulling us in different directions. So when we talk about sexual betrayal today, we're not just talking about the physical infidelity. We're talking about a lot of different things. So I'd love for you up front, Dr. Sheri, how would you define sexual betrayal? And maybe what are some of the different forms of sexual betrayal in culture today?
Well, and I love that you asked this question. I think my definition of sexual betrayal has evolved just because of what you said. So sexual betrayal, sexual infidelity means that there's an emotional, relational, sexual acting out within an intimate partnership. Now, someone might say, why do you say emotional and relational? Because I think so often they're minimized. I sit with couples where the one who's betrayed says, I would never cheat on her. Yet what they're not taking into account is pornography is cheating. Yeah. And we'll talk more about that and why I see it as that today. It is being unfaithful. Yeah. It's unfaithfulness of your heart. It's causing damage. Today, with technology and all, the pornography, flirting, sexting, AI-generated pornography,
Mm.
which is where people are taking their significant other and putting pictures of them, unbeknownst to them, with someone else's head on them, or vice versa. Or they're going out to the spouse or significant other's Facebook page. They're taking their friends and family members, and they're using AI-generated porn to masturbate to. Covert cameras are being hidden inside bathrooms where unsuspecting spouses are being videotaped without their knowledge. Cybersex, massage parlors, strip clubs, like those are things that people might not see as infidelity or betrayal, but they are emotional, relational violations. And then, of course, we've got the hookups, the serial cheating, the affairs, same-sex affairs, right, with people that are shocking to their spouse. There's all kinds of things that are going on that they're not aware of. And that is where the betrayal comes in.
Dr. Sheri, and you mentioned that there's so many different types, so many different forms, and it's heartbreaking because there's so many different things that are pulling couples apart from one another and creating this losing at love, if you want to say it that way. And so just recognizing all the different variables, but then at the same time, knowing that you're continuing to walk alongside of countless people through deep pain, through deep trauma, when things like this begin to infect their marriages, infect their relationships. And I'd love to hear, what have you began to notice that's different or distinct about sexual betrayal than the other emotional or relational wounds that can be created throughout marriage? Because there's a lot of conflict that comes with marriage, but there's something distinct and different when sexual betrayal gets talked about in the mix of this thing.
Yeah, I think some of the most difficult things that couples contend with when somebody has betrayed them in any type of the ways that I've just mentioned to you,
Yeah.
is there's not only a breach of trust, there's a series, many, many lies.
Yeah.
Lies, gaslighting. And when I say lies, Zach, I'm not talking about a lie of omission, which is a lie. I'm choosing not to tell you what's going on. That's definitely betrayal. But what's really confusing is there's bull-faced lies. There are lies where the one who's being betrayed, her intuition or his intuition, because betrayal goes in both categories, right? There are women who betray and there are men who betray.
Yeah.
But just for the sake of our conversation, so they're picking up on something's going on, and they will go to that person and ask them, I found this text message. Were you talking to a woman at work after 10 at night? Because I looked at it. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I found this on your phone. Oh, that's just basically somebody that I had to check in with for the office because we have a presentation tomorrow. Bull-faced lies. There's times where people will lie and they will be crying, saying, no, I am so sorry. And the significant other will be saying, is there anything else? And they will swear on Bibles. They will say, on so-and-so's grave, I am not lying. And then I do these things that I'm trained to do through ITAP, the International Institute of Trauma and Addiction Professionals, where we have been trained to do something called a therapeutic full disclosure that has a polygraph attached to it. Now, that polygraph, Zach, is like a come to Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
It is an extra step in helping that person who's been betraying come clean, come into truth, because as Jesus says, the truth will set you free. And it helps that significant other that's been betrayed begin to trust something. because they haven't been able to trust the one who's betrayed, because there's the integrity disorder and there's psychological abuse with the gaslighting and blame shifting. And so their intuition has been eroded. And so that polygraph, that therapeutic full disclosure, sometimes there's follow-ups that are done a year or two later. I just had one recently, and he had been working really hard, and there was a great report. So guess what? She was now looking at him like, I can finally start to trust you.
Yeah.
I have been so undergirded by the sexual acts you've done, but also by the lies that are there that make someone question the essence of who that person was that they've chosen to be with. And so that's where some of the deep, deep repair happens, because they start to trust themselves. They start to trust that person again. And I'm sad that the polygraph becomes one of their friends, but it's to help get them out of the disillusionment of disclosures, trickle disclosures, or disclosures that have not been full. There've been disclosures that have been partial, hoping that their spouse will forgive what they have shared. But then that person that's been sexually acting out doesn't get clean. They don't come into full truth. So there's this hidden shame that's still in them that continues to churn inside of them, and it keeps them bound. And the enemy just, has a heyday with that. So I just love seeing couples come into truth. And many of the spouses, it's over 90% in the work that I do, even with these tools, the spouses stay. They're just wanting, even with horrid things that have happened. Honestly, they want truth, and they want safety through sobriety, and it can happen.
It can indeed. Dr. Sheri, it's interesting that you mentioned that verse that the truth can set you free, and the truth will set you free, because as you mentioned, lies are the native language of the enemy, and he wants nothing more than for us to continue to live in those lies. But when truth is established, that's where we can begin to build on the sturdy foundation of trust. And without trust, there is no relationship at the end of the day, because then you just don't even know what's true to begin with. And you mentioned pornography earlier, and you mentioned all the different vices, all the different forms of sexual betrayal. And I want to touch on that for just a moment, because we are seeing, as Jim Kress and some of our other friends would identify as a porndemic in America, especially since COVID, when there were the lockdowns and the loneliness and people found themselves inside on their devices more. I mean, there was an influx in pornography rates. And with that, I can only imagine the influx there was in sexual betrayal. And you serving in the front lines, I'd love to hear just your thoughts on what you've seen because of the influx in pornography, in terms of how, yes, that is still a form of sexual betrayal, because at the end of the day, and this is now me just talking off the cuff here, it's not just you sleeping with another woman or another man. It is when you are emotionally connected, you're putting someone else in the place of your spouse, your loved one. That is where automatically we begin to cross the line. Speak to just, again, not just the influx, but the challenges that pornography rates are continuing to bring in your field.
Yeah. Let me start by just quoting somebody that we all know, love, and respect. Let me quote Jesus for a second, because in Matthew 28, he said this, and honestly, I think this is an underpreached verse, but he talked about the fact if anyone looks at a woman lustfully, they have already committed adultery.
Yes.
Now, I think that makes us shudder in our boots, because I'm not, guys are like, oh my goodness, hello, and there's stimulation all over. And I feel for people that who are visually stimulated to the point, and I say people now because both men and women are struggling with pornography. Almost the amount of women that are struggling with pornography is picking up speed at a crazy level, that they're feeling bound by it. So what was Jesus really saying in that? When I think about it, I'm not talking about noticing, observing, seeing, right? And figuring out what you're going to do with that.
Yeah.
Let's use porn, because porn is a no-brainer, right? I honestly think that if I was sitting with Jesus right now, right, you and I, Zach, and Jesus was on the conversation, and we were saying, Jesus, what are you talking about? I honestly think he'd say, well, let's take a look at pornography. Because pornography is choosing to click and look and lust and act out and masturbate and all of that. It is a choice to go into that place of lust. And that is damaging on their hearts, on their souls, but also it creates damage in their significant other. And you might say, well, how can you say that? Well, this is a chart that I created. It's called the Traumatic Relational Nature of Pornography chart. Okay.
Wow.
And in here, Zach, I talk about the impact to spiritual health, to their faith health, relationship with God, impact to their identity, impact to their love and relationship. This is just porn.
Wow.
Impact to their personal health, impact to their sexuality and how they are sexually with their partner, and impact, there's emotional injury and psychological abuse. Now, this is porn alone. This is in, there's a book called The Healing Church, What the Church Gets Wrong About Porn and How to Fix It. It's by Sam Black, who is educational director at Covenant Eyes. But I wrote that in a chapter in his book. And it's, if you wanted to check it out, or I have it on my website, but porn harms people. I hate porn. And I am very bold. I have other people that think I'm crazy because I hate porn. But pornography that is used non-consenting, where somebody doesn't know you're using it. And I would even say, Zach, even consenting porn. I have people that started using pornography in their marriage to try to, spruce things up. And I'm telling you, basically over 3, 5, 10 years, that spouse is like, I don't really like it anymore.
Right.
You know why? Because she's realizing that she's not the object of his affection anymore. She's realizing that her body is changing. She's starting to compete with the images. Now the couple is realizing they can't even have intimate intercourse or have orgasms without the pornography. I mean, it does a number on our sexuality and our soul. And so I think what Jesus was talking about here, and the reason that he said this is adultery, it's because it's adultery of the heart. There is something that begins to strip away the very essence of how he created us as two people that are of divine beauty and glory, that are meant to connect together, that is heinously compromised when pornography is in the mix. There's a friend of mine, love her. Her name is Lori Hall, and she wrote a book, Affair of the Mind. And I don't know anyone who's done a better job with pornography and writing biblically as to what that does and why she can call her book An Affair of the Mind, because I think she's got the heart of Jesus when she's trying to communicate what Jesus was trying to say. It's damaging.
It's very damaging. And Dr. Sheri, I think it's interesting that you brought up how at the end of the day, at the heart of infidelity, it's an emotional issue. But I also would say in the healing aspects of intimacy is an emotional issue as well. It's being able to get to the heart of the matter and recognizing that love isn't about what somebody can offer me. Love is about loving someone for who God has made them to be and who they naturally are and their true identity as a man or as a woman. And so getting back to the heart of things, and really that's where the healing journey begins. Again, sex is not a goal. It's a byproduct. When there's emotional safety and security within a marriage, right? That is when we can actually engage in the act that God created for good reasons within his bounds. So again, it's always back to the emotional heart of the issue. But you mentioned something that I want to touch on here for a moment, because you said how not just pornography, but all forms of sexual betrayal, they wound the person that has no idea, or maybe does know at the end of the day on the other side of the bed, on the other side of whatever it is, the conversation, our partner, our spouse, recognizing the effects that it has on them. And we know that sexual betrayal takes a toll holistically, psychologically, physiologically, physically. I'd love to hear what you've been able to really recognize, because there's this buzzword in our language and in our field, which is betrayal trauma. Right? What trauma does to the brain, what it does to our beliefs, what it does to the body. I'd love to hear some of those effects if you would share those with us.
Yeah. I in my book, Intimate Deception, Healing the Wounds of Sexual Betrayal, I have a chapter that I call the Dirty Dozen. Now, why do I call it the Dirty Dozen? Because there are 12 layers of impact, body, soul, mind, spirit, as you just said. Let me flesh that out.
Yeah.
So recently, was talking with a couple, and she had found text messages that were sent to an affair partner where he was commenting on how much he loved her beautiful long legs.
Mm.
Now, this woman didn't have any issues with her legs before that.
Yeah.
She never challenged how her legs looked. She actually felt good about them. She enjoyed what she wore and how she looked in them. But now, all she can see is legs that are short and ankles that are thick. I mean, she is struggling with her physical identity. I've had women that have, husbands that are looking at pornography. They've found it. They've noticed kind of the types of porn he's looked at.
Yeah.
And so they've begun to beat up their own bodies because their identity physically and how they look is now being compared to what they believe that their spouse, significant other, husband is looking at. These shame beliefs, Zach, are embedded, and because whatever fires together wires together.
Yeah.
Well, when a woman discovers or man discovers that there's some kind of acting out, they wire in the brain. I think the brain is the most selfish organ in the body, even more selfish than our heart, I think. And this is why, because the brain's trying to save us. So the brain wires in a negative belief about ourselves. Sounds like this: I'm not pretty enough. I'm not sexual enough. I'm not good enough. I can't trust anyone. I can't trust my judgment. I'm not in control. These are very common, what I call betrayal trauma induced beliefs that get wired in at the crime scenes of whatever sexual infidelity they discover or now know about. Now, I love the word, right? The Bible is full of truths about who we are. And I think the Apostle Paul was the first mind coach, right? Where he's like, think on these things that are good, that are pure, that are, reasonable, that are, he's saying, hey, like, focus your mind on these things. But when trauma and the brain wires in these heartfelt, emotionally, thoughtfully wired in beliefs, people try to think good things about them and they can't. And some of them even end up feeling more despair about their own faith because they're like, why can't I change my mind? And so I found in my work that there are interventions that I have to use with betrayed partners when the cognitive behavioral therapy that simple changing the mind instead of being able to move from I'm not enough, I'm not sexual enough, I'm not sexy enough
Mm.
to I am enough.
Yeah.
I have to use tools like EMDR, which is
Yes.
eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a tool that begins to thoughtfully and emotionally begin to dismember that lie
Mm.
because it's rooted in that brain that's working really hard to save that person. Because honestly, if you believe that you're not enough, that you can't trust anyone, that you're not in control, that you can't trust your own judgment,
Mm.
are you going to be around people? Or are you going to pull away and sequester yourself away? The brain wants you to be safe. So it basically wants you to live in a box under a rock
Yeah.
because, yeah, nothing will happen there. But that's really what happens to betrayed partners
Mm.
is all these lies that are there, those trauma-induced shame beliefs are there that need to be tended to in order to help their brain change its mind about what happened to them in the
Yeah.
betrayal.
Yeah, and Dr. Sherry, I'm just sitting here thinking it's so easy for us to begin to attach our identity to our idols in life. And a lot of times, our marriage and our relationships can actually act as an idol. And when those things maybe begin to break apart, so does everything else in our own particular life because of the beliefs, because of the maladaptive thoughts and these patterns that begin to form and take place and take root. And so I guess a question I'd love to ask is maybe for someone out there today who's listening, maybe for a counselor, a coach, a pastor who's walking alongside of people who have begun to kind of stick their identity in the trajectory of their relationship. How can we begin to detach who we are from maybe what has happened to us?
Yeah. So let me go. I love what you're asking me. So let's go back to idolatry for a second. Behind the betrayed partner whose maybe that relationship has been their safe place, right? And they've put that on a pedestal. Well, let's go back to the sexual acting out,
Yeah.
which became an idol, right? Pornography can be an idol,
Yep.
sexual acting out, sexual entitlement can be an idol. I want to do whatever I want to do. And, all of that. So there is idolatry here. Now, the relationship and the reason it begins to fall apart is because of the betrayal trauma and the impact.
Mm.
So a lot of times I think as helping professionals, the thing we want most is for that person to be quieted or healed
Mm.
or to have a clear identity. And so I think what happens is we move in really quickly
Yeah.
and try to fix that person's perspective or identity instead of actually sitting with them
Mm.
and saying, it's not about you. It's about what happened to you in this relationship. Now, as therapists, what's really crazy, we've gone to school and in all these years of learning, right? When we look at a couple, we immediately begin to go, okay, well, let's start unpacking their family history. Let's begin to look at both parts, even when they come in with some kind of infidelity or pornography issue or whatever. We begin to try to share space with what's going on.
Mm.
But this is what I want to say to us. It's not a marriage issue. It's a sexual deception issue.
Mm.
It's an issue of some type of sexual acting out that's in the relationship that is causing the marital issues that are going on.
Mm.
Now, there might be someone right now that's going, yeah, but you didn't meet the couple that I was sitting with, right?
Mm.
You
Yeah.
you haven't met that person who's angry and upset. And I go, I know that. I haven't. You're right. But if I miss her,
Mm.
if she's bleeding out and I'm trying to help her forgive him quickly or move past what's happened, because I'm feeling powerless and helpless as a helping professional over her pain.
Yeah.
And so I don't like how powerless I'm feeling with her powerlessness and the powerlessness of what's going on, because there's not a clear path. I don't know the clear path to how to stop this bleed that's going on. I'm going to hope for the best. I think some of us, Zach, we have the best hearts as caring professionals.
Yeah.
And I think when we try to deal with this as a surface level situation, what we're doing is unknowingly colluding with the deception,
Mm.
because we quickly let people off the hook and try to get that spouse to move forward without doing any deeper dives around. So, how often has pornography been going on? Or maybe referring them out to someone like a Jim Kress or others that are certified sex addiction therapists, right? I'm a certified sex addiction therapist. I work with both sides. I work with those who sexually act out, and I work with those who have been betrayed. And they may even lie to the pastor. I'm good. I've stopped. I'm not doing this anymore. And then the pastor's like, okay, you hear him? He's good. He's not doing this anymore.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden,
Yep.
that whole situation and coupleship is now moved on a different track. And guess what happens? The sexual acting out just goes deeper underground.
Mm.
And then it comes up 3 years later, 5 years later, 10 years. It's again going on because it never was eradicated.
Mm.
And so I think as helping professionals, listening to the one who's been betrayed, believing them,
Mm.
doing deeper dives around what's been going on. And then if I can just say here to all of us, just in the most loving, kind, appealing way, that I'm just wanting to hold on to all your hearts that are hearing me right now. And I'm saying, would you consider getting trained so that you have an expertise in this field? Because as believers, I think we deserve the gold standard of care.
Mm.
And what does that mean? That means that we want our AACC professionals,
Yeah.
whether you're a clergy, therapist, counselor, or coach. There are organizations that train us so that we can be Navy SEALs
Yes.
in this. And with this pandemic, Zach, we need Navy SEALs
Yes.
to know how to go in and, like surgeons, begin to eradicate the very thing that Jesus was talking about.
Mm.
And it's tricky because with sexual compulsivity, lying and deception is its bedfellow.
Yes.
And so we can't simply just believe what we're seeing, because more often than not, there's a whole cesspool that's
Mm.
underneath that lie, and somebody who is hooked,
Mm.
hooked to the lust, and it's causing a harm in them and the one they love.
Yes. Dr. Sheri, um, I echo that. I hope and pray that every member, student, leader, anyone affiliated with the AACC watching or listening to this today would continue to go out and seek that further education, so that way, like you said, they could be a Navy SEAL. They could have an expertise in this area, because I hate to say it, but these issues and challenges, they're not going anywhere. As AI and technology advancements continue to move in that direction, we're going to continue to see more and more of this. And so we need to be trained and equipped to meet the needs of the current stage of culture, but also those that sit across from us, whether it's an individual that's struggling with an addiction, whether it's somebody that has been impacted and wounded by somebody else's addiction. We need this training now more than ever. And I think that's where I want to go next for a moment, Dr. Sheri, is just a word to, you mentioned you sit down with both the offender and the offended. And I'm just thinking about somebody who is listening to the conversation today, who is feeling a conviction in their heart that they recognize that they're living that double life, that they are doing things behind closed doors, that they're lying about in open spaces, maybe even with their spouse. And I'm just thinking, what are some practical next steps for that person today to go and get the help, the hope, and the healing that is possible to them as well?
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say I'm really proud of you
Mm,
for even pausing enough to hearing what I'm saying right now.
mm,
And I'm proud of you for being sensitive to the Holy Spirit
mm.
because the Holy Spirit is for you. The Holy Spirit wants you free.
Yeah,
Jesus wants you out of the bondage, especially as you continue to serve and care for those. Um, as helping professionals, there's a good portion of us that are also hooked by
yeah,
this. How do I know this? Because of the research that's been done and how many clergy and pastors struggle from my own story, Zach.
mm,
Um, with Connor, we were struggling this in our marriage while we were in ministry. And I think what kept us out of care for
mm.
so long is that for helping professionals and clergy in particular, where do you go to start doing your work? Because like with us, when it came out, um, we were dismissed from
Mm,
our job, from our profession.
yeah,
And sadly, the whole bottom of our world fell out.
mm,
And, at that time, what was going on is that the staff pulled away. I don't think they really knew what to do with us. There wasn't as many helps as there are now. That's the truth.
yeah,
But, it's kind of like Connor and I walked away like leprosy. And so that's why I say to you, thank you
mm,
for being open and, looking for somebody who is an expert in the field, like a certified sex addiction therapist,
yeah,
a CSAT, looking within our AACC community
yeah.
for those of us that do this, either um, through programs where you have empowered the coaches and the pastors and therapists and counselors, um, getting with somebody who you can safely begin to open up that chasm
Mm,
and begin to do the work. I am confident that the Lord will walk your healing out with you, and very possibly you might be a wounded healer on the other end
mm,
that is going to have even a larger impact or larger ministry. I mean, look what's happened to me.
yeah,
When this happened, Zach,
yes.
I thought I would never share this story again. It's not what I wanted to talk about.
Mm,
When I shared it with New Life on the radio, and it was a pastor's wife who called in, and I was like, "Hey, this is Sheri. I don't know if you know this, but my story is that this happened to me too." And,
mm,
Steve Arterburn and I think Mylene
yeah.
Yerkes were with me, and they looked at me and they were like, "We didn't know it was your story." And I'm like, "I
Oh,
know. I don't talk about it because as a therapist, no one would want to come to me." Wrong answer. Like
mm,
the Lord made that moment become fish and loaves.
mm,
And so there is people out there in droves that need us. And so if you're a helping professional, please um, get your help,
that's
get
right.
there, make yourself a priority and start to do the healing so that you can work in integrity and not feel compromised every day that you're on the front line working with others. It's a really good feeling to be able to work honestly with integrity at some point, and that is there for the taking for you.
Yes, indeed. And as you mentioned, healing is a journey. It's a process. It's not instantaneous. It doesn't happen in the snap of a finger, but day by day, Morning by morning, moment by moment, decision by decision, healing is possible. And now I'm thinking, Dr. Sheri, about the person who has experienced that sexual betrayal, who has been wounded, who has maybe they find themselves in a marriage, in a relationship where some of those decisions are continuing to be acted out. Maybe they know about it, maybe they don't, maybe they just had a bomb dropped at their doorstep type of feeling. What are some first practical steps for that person today when they feel like everything is crumbling underneath them and they feel like their life is just completely being shattered?
Yeah. Having just been at AACC at the Worldwide Conference, Zach, and sharing in my presentation, do you know that I had a line of
Hmm.
betrayed partners
Hmm.
that came up to me in tears?
Oh, yeah.
What did they say? I don't know what to do.
Yep.
I'm so scared. I don't know where to start.
Mm.
I'm overwhelmed. This has been going on for 20 years. Like so much heartbreak.
Mm.
And I think the first thing that we do when we find out about this is we isolate,
Mm.
we pull away. I often say the betrayed partners are like doves in the cleft of a rock. They're just
Yeah.
like, I don't want to come out. And I'm
Yeah.
like, come hither.
Yeah.
It's almost doing the counterintuitive. It's saying, please, I want you to do what feels unnatural by
Mm.
reaching out for support,
Mm.
for somebody that really understands betrayal trauma,
Mm.
that really understands what it feels like, or really understands the impact and how you can get out of this. I have a place that you mentioned at the beginning that's called my Brave One community.
Yes.
And why did I create that place? Well, because my book came out, then COVID happened.
Mm.
And then people were asking, what do I do? I've read your book, but I don't know what my next steps are.
Mm.
So, a colleague of mine, we created kind of a virtual arc of sorts where it's a safe place for females who've been sexually betrayed to begin doing their work. Well, so often people say, I don't even know where to start. I have written and have what I call my betrayal recovery roadmap.
Mm.
And I now use it to teach clergy and therapists and coaches how to help a betrayed partner move from D Day, Discovery Day, when everything blows up, all the way to fierce strength, where they
Wow.
can get stronger. And I think with that roadmap, how to heal, the steps that are necessary, because there's lots of things that can be done.
Yes.
When they see that roadmap, they're like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. I didn't even know this was available. I can do this. And they begin to find hope um, in where their feet begin to move instead of just feeling like you're wandering aimlessly, not knowing where to go. You need to feel seen and validated. Your heart needs to be believed. And then you need the steps that can help you not only heal, but heal well.
Mm.
And you also need the steps to throw a javelin in the center of that wheel of the sexual acting out to get that to stop and to work towards eradicating the very thing that's harming you and the one you love.
Mm.
So all of that is available to individuals. My Brave One community, if you
Yes.
are a clergy, counselor, care professional, who coach, right? Who
Yes.
knows somebody, maybe you're working with somebody and you're like, okay, I need some help with this person because there's a lot of moving parts.
Mm.
Send them to my Brave One community. It's braveone.com/care. We're giving away a free month to
Yes.
anyone who's listening right now, Zach, because I want those that we're caring for, our clients, our parishioners, to get the help they need. So it's braveone.com/ and then the word care, CARE, to represent your podcast.
braveonecommunity.com/care. Care. I'm telling you something. We're so grateful for just, again, the resources, the access, the awareness that you're continuing to bring to this particular field, to these issues, to these challenges, but then the care and the hope and the help and the healing that you and so many others, Dr. Sheri, are offering those in need. I only have two follow-up questions as we kind of close our conversation together today, but I'm thinking about this process of healing. And I'm thinking about the impact that faith has on the process, but also the impact that forgiveness can have on the process. And I'm thinking about a lot of people have a misconception, Dr. Sheri, on what forgiveness really means and what it looks like. It's not just letting someone off the hook. It's not just saying that what happened didn't actually happen and we're just putting that into this mind of forgetfulness. But it's being able to recognize, as the old saying says, that forgiveness is like setting a captive or a prisoner free and recognizing that that captive or prisoner was you. It's the recognition of surrendering those things over to the Lord, but then realizing that forgiveness might be given and it only takes one, but trust is earned. Speak to the importance of forgiveness in the process of healing, Dr. Sheri, but then also the difference between forgiveness and trust.
I love it. I just want to say preach to you. I love what you just said because it's so good. So let me just speak quickly to what forgiveness is not. I think a lot of times people feel the need, either they're being encouraged by someone, a care professional, or a family member, that you need to forgive and let it go. What forgiveness isn't is simply forgiving somebody and letting it go. Why do I say that? Because I did that with Connor. I knew he had made a 900 call when we were dating, and I didn't even know what that was, but it was a sex line. And so once I found out what it was, we talked about it. I basically looked at my own life and I went, I am so far from being perfect. I have done wrong things. And so I released him. I forgave him. But you know what I didn't do? I didn't go any deeper. I didn't ask any other questions. So that was really more of a form of denial. It was my way of tapping the pain down so I didn't have to face the fact. I spiritualized it. And I think forgiveness can often quickly be spiritualized. When is it not okay to forgive someone? If somebody is continuing to sexually act out, it's not the time to forgive. It's the time to set boundaries and get safe. Forgiveness is not going to help you or that other person. You need to be able to be strong, set boundaries, get safe before forgiveness can be dealt with at a later time.
Yes.
Now, what forgiveness is, I think forgiveness is a series of one step, one little yes. I'm choosing to forgive at some point when that person has earned your trust or has gotten safe, has done their work. And that one yes is followed by a lot of other little yeses. I just want to share a quick story, Zach. When Connor and I, sadly, the sexual acting out continued. We didn't get, I think, the kind of help we needed. And he acted out. We were in 4 years of therapy, going 3 times a week. And he was seeing affair partners, prostitutes, and pornography during that period of time. Wow. Sadly, our marriage ended in a divorce. My life has not been a casualty like my marriage was, but it impacted me gravely. On our wedding night, I had chose to bring, I wanted to wash Connor's feet as an act of entering into a relationship. I'd saved myself. I was a virgin, and I felt like that would be a really beautiful way. So I brought a basin and some towels and some beautiful smelling soap. And I did. I washed his feet before we actually were intimate sexually together for the first time. I wanted to do that every anniversary. But I found out about the pornography a few months into our marriage. And so everything just went sideways. And so every year that I would look in my closet at our anniversary time and see that basin with the towels and the soap, I didn't touch it. I didn't go back to it. It didn't fit at that point.
Yeah.
So here I am, our marriage, we're in the process of divorcing. I'm packing up my stuff to go to a place to stay. And it's a rainy day, and there's mud on the floor as some friends were coming, helping me move stuff, and then we were putting it in each other's cars. Well, I went in and I looked at the floor of the kitchen, and there were just mud footprints everywhere. And I thought, I could leave it this way. I wanted to leave it like that. Like he'll come home and see the dust bunnies and the mud, and
Yeah.
he can clean it up. You could just hear my pain, right?
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what? I'm gonna get a bucket and I'm gonna wash the floor. And that's how I used to wash my floors, that I get down on my hands and knees. I still do it that way, where I'm washing it so you can get in the cracks and crevices. Well, got a bucket, and I had a towel, and I was down on the floor and I was washing the floor. And here I was. He'll never know that I'm here washing the mud off the floor. I can't even believe I'm doing this. And I was thinking of all the sexual acting out that he was done. And I was just in this place of anger and hurt and despair. And then this precious Holy Spirit comes and overshadows me in that moment. And he said, beloved, you are washing his feet.
Mm.
And I went, I am. I had a bucket, I had water, and I had a towel, and I was washing his feet, not the way that I did on our honeymoon night, but on a way that felt very cathartic. And Zach, that was my first step towards forgiveness. It was that act of getting rid of the mud and letting that go and doing an act of kindness in the direction when I had been so hurt. And I thank God for that moment, because it taught me like what forgiveness can look like. So that was one little yes, followed by a lot of others in my journey.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that just with vulnerability. I mean, it makes me emotional to hear how you didn't surrender to the emotion of anger or discouragement, because it would have been really easy to do that, but you surrendered to the eternal, to the Lord. And what I've recognized in low moments in my own life, Dr. Sheri, is that we don't even have to invite God into them when we have the revelation of realizing that He already lives there. I remember there was a story from America's Got Talent of a woman named Jane Markowski years ago. They called her the Nightbird. She ended up passing away into glory with the Lord with the battle of cancer. But I remember there was a blog that I read of hers. She talked about being at this low point in her life, and she found herself on the bathroom floor, and she was crying out to God, and she didn't know if healing was possible, and she just wanted to make the most of her life that seemed to be shattering right before her very eyes. And this is the one thing that she found, and the one thing that she wrote: who knew that God lived so close to the bathroom floor? I think that's the beautiful thing. And that's how I want to end this conversation with you, Dr. Sheri, is to somebody out there today who maybe is in the process of restoring trust, who maybe feels like all trust has been shattered, who feels like they've lost hope. What's a final word of encouragement that you would give them today to hold on to hope? Because we don't have the emotional hope, we have the eternal hope of Jesus. What's a final word of encouragement for us today?
Zach, I think when I think about hope, as I started today talking about Ava, the lust, the strong nail that hooks you to itself, versus hope, which is what comes after the nail. And I want to say this to you. I don't know exactly where you are right now and what you've been facing, but I know it's been beyond devastating. You never asked for this to happen.
Mm,
You don't want to be where you're at.
mm,
And some of us have even lost hope in God in this process. But I want you to know that I, like you, have been at a devastating place. And while even in my faith, I had a spiritual faith trauma and lost hope in God for a period of time, I want you to know that I know, that I know, that I know, that I know now, that the Lord was with me, even in that moment with the bucket. And even though I didn't get what I wanted was a restored marriage, but what I got is a life that has been walked out with a Savior who is as close to puppy breath to me. And in those moments when you are despairing, I've come to know those have been the catalyst of some of the most intimate moments of me knowing God's breath. And so I just want to encourage you to hang on. Even though your life isn't where you want it today, it doesn't mean that He doesn't or won't make fish and loaves of it.
Mm.
He has with me, and He doesn't play favorites, and I know He'll do that with you.
Mm. Cling to Christ, hang on, and hold on to hope. Dr. Sheri Denham Keffer, my friend, where can our audience members go? All of our members, where can they find out more about you? Maybe a website, maybe a one-stop shop. I know you mentioned the Brave One community. I know you also had mentioned something about possibly having a resource for us about how to restore and build back trust. Where can they go to find all of those resources?
Yeah, we have that available to you. So just go to braveone.com/care. So my website that I'd have you go to is braveone.com. It's BRAVEONE.com. Now, for those free resources or the free month in my Brave One community, just go to BRAVEONE, braveone.com, and then / and simply the word care, CARE. And you'll get that free download, and you'll get how to click in and get a month free for that person that you're working with who really needs the care and support.
Again,
So appreciate it, Zach. Thank you for
yes.
allowing me to gift those of us that are listening with these resources.
So grateful for you, ma'am. Again, that's braveone.com. And for the free resource, braveone.com / care. Dr. Sheri, on behalf of my dad, Dr. Tim Clinton, myself, all of us here and our entire family at the American Association of Christian Counselors, we are grateful for you. Thank you for your obedient and your willing yes. Thank you for the resilience that you have shown throughout your life. And thank you for all that you do to continue to step into the lives of those who are hurting and maybe find their lives in a place of being shattered. God is using you, my friend, and we are grateful for you each and every step of the way. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Zach.
Well, my friends, what a powerful reminder that even in the aftermath of deep betrayal, that hope isn't lost. It's waiting to be rebuilt. As Dr. Sheri reminded us, healing isn't just about repairing a relationship. It's about reclaiming your identity, your voice, and your belief that you are worthy of safety and love. If today's conversation resonated with you, I want to encourage you, again, to check out Dr. Sheri's book, Intimate Deception, Healing the Wounds of Sexual Betrayal, and explore her Brave One community, a space designed for women to heal together, find clarity, and experience restoration. Remember this, healing is possible, even if reconciliation isn't. You can walk through the pain and come out stronger, wiser, and whole because you are not defined by what broke you, but by the God who redeems all things. As always, I'm your host today, Dr. Zach Clinton, and this has been the Care Counsel podcast, a premier feature of ours here at the American Association of Christian Counselors, where we're committed to equipping you with real stories, biblical truth, and practical tools to help you heal well and help others do the same. Until next time, stay anchored in hope.